the last piece of information that, well, it's not quite the last, I guess it's the next to the last, is called AYP. AYP is the annual yearly progress report, different than APR, which is the annual progress report. AYP looks a year at a time, and this is our most recent proficient on ITBS and ITAD. And I'm going to walk you through this relatively quickly, but there's some important information. The first thing, if you make a note on this at all, I want you to label up raw data. Okay? The Department of Ed only looks at students that are called A students, full academic year. And what that means is they've been in our district for a full academic year. They didn't walk in 2 weeks before the test, and then we test them and they count as ESAC scores. Now, that might be good or it might be bad. It's hard to know. But this is raw data. So this has every student in ESAC that takes ITBS, ITAD. It doesn't account for any of the kids who worked here for a full academic year. Now, if only smart kids moved in, then it's higher than what it should be. And if only low-performing kids moved in, then it's lower than what it should be. And we don't sort the full academic year kids. Every student in the district, every student in the state has an identification number, and what we know now is every student is accounted for, and they know, because of our JFC data, they know when the student entered our district, and if they left, they know when they left the district, so it will be calculated electronically about who our FAE kids are. What I'd like you to look at is just a sample of what the data looks like. Let's just take the Sac Elementary School. Follow across the line that says building. The building average in reading comprehension was 79.2% of the kids were proficient in reading comprehension. And that's in second, third, and fourth grade. We don't test for ITBS in kindergarten or first grade. In math, 71.29% of the kids were proficient, and in science, 76% of the kids. The line below that, special education, 44% of the kids proficient in reading, 33% proficient in math, and 67% of them proficient in science. Before I make a comment, let's go down to low socioeconomic status. That would be kids that qualify for free and reduced meals, and we're required to report this by state and federal law. You might say, well, why do we report that? Well, it's a state and federal law that we have to look at how kids. The measurement for poverty in the nation is the kids that qualify for free and reduced meals. Okay? So our kids who live in poverty, as defined by state and federal law, about a little over 71% of them were proficient in reading comprehension, and that's not too much different than what the whole building average was. 65% proficient in math, again, not too far different than the building average, and 70% in science, so again, not too far from the entire building. We have 9 special education kids in the Sac Elementary building. That's the number clear to the right means. And we have 49 kids in the Sac Elementary building on free and reduced meals. So, if you look just at the Sac Elementary building, the big difference maker right there is you look at those special education scores and say, what the heck's going on? Move down to the Wall Lake Elementary building, and you can look at the building average for reading, math, and science. You can look at special ed for reading, math, and science. They're just a little bit higher than SACs, but the trend is still the same. A little bit higher in reading than they are in math, and then a little bit higher in science than they are in reading. And then you can look at the low SES kids, and really it's almost a mirror of the Sac Elementary building as far as the low SES kids are pretty darn close to the building average. Move down to middle school. Look at the building, look at special ed, and look at low SES. So 22% of our kids in the middle school who have IEPs, and there are 36 kids if you move clear over to the right-hand side. There are 36 special education kids in the middle school, and 22% of those kids with IEPs were proficient in reading, 30% in math, 50% in science, and again, if you look at low SES, it isn't so much different than the whole building. Flip the sheet over and look at high school.
Are the special ed percentages included in the building?
And if you look at the high school, again, low scores in special education, very different than what the building scores are. There are 27 kids in special education, at least 27 kids that took the test on the week that we were giving it, and there were 77 low SES kids. We don't report our special ed scores because there are too few kids. They just get dumped into a state pool. So it doesn't say East Sac Special Ed at Sac Elementary or at Wallake Elementary. They just get dumped into the state pool of kids for special education. There is a report, though, for the low SES kids in the Sac Elementary and the Wallake Elementary because there's more than 30 kids in each of those categories. There's more than 30 males, there's more than 30 females, so those are also reported. At the middle school, we report the special ed and the free and reduced, the low SES kids. And at the high school, there were not 30 kids, so that'll be part of the state pool again. And low SES will be a pool that we report on. Special education proficiencies across the state of Iowa are dismal. And one of the AEA people said to me, this looks like state scores. And I was just talking to Denny this morning when I said, I think it was maybe it wasn't. I was talking to somebody and made the comment that what doesn't really matter to me personally if they're low across the state of Iowa, these are our kids. So what the heck's happening? Our AEA sat down with me last week and we just really looked at the data. We talked about teaching practices. We talked about IEPs and how goals are written, implementation in the classroom. And so we developed a plan about starting to work with our special education teachers. It does not necessarily say that they're failing. Honestly, I don't know what it says for sure. Last year in our middle school, and it has 3 asterisks right there beside it, we weren't a watch school for school in need of improvement because we went to what's called Safe Harbor. And Safe Harbor are a couple of other ways that they can take a look at our data to see if our students have grown. So if they didn't make the 41st national percentile rank, did they make a year's growth? And if they made a year's growth, then the DE says, you know what, then they shouldn't be called not proficient. Maybe they started out at the 7th NPR and they jumped to the 27th. That's significant growth, that's improvement, so we're not going to say that they are not improving. If you notice this last fall, there were twice as many schools identified as on the watch list or as private schools, and there'll be twice or 3 times as many this year. I hope that the district isn't a watch school and we won't know until we actually enter our data into the secure site for the Department of Ed. So it'll be about next August before the district knows that for sure. In the meantime, what I would report to you is that we're working on issues related to this data, but again, right on here that it's raw data. And that's important to us. Whether kids are full academic year or not, they're our students. They've been educated here, they're part of our school system, and if they were here 2 weeks before they took the test and are still here, then they're our kids. And very likely they'll be here next year when they take the test. So this is the most up-to-date information. This one, remember, is a year ago, but this one is the raw data that's most up-to-date information. Any questions about this sheet?
The trajectory on the bottom,
Oh.
what does that mean?
Several years ago, the Iowa Department of Education, as mandated by No Child Left Behind, had to determine year 1 of growth. And the end year was 2013, 2014, which is on that right-hand side of that trajectory. And we've been in this for about 6 years, I think, 5 or 6 years. And so year 1, and then year 2013-14, there was a trajectory. It was just a graph that just charted where Sac, Wallake, Auburn, Odebold Arthur, IKM Manning, every school district had a trajectory that just plotted it out for you about what you needed to do you had to be at least at certain places every year so that you could reach the 100% proficient in 2013 and 2014.